Hi there, Chris here. Today I'm going to be making some trick-or-treat bags using my AccuQuilt. So I will be using the AccuQuilt Go Fat Quarter Friendly Grocery Tote Bag from Carolina Moore. This pattern uses the new box bag dies from Carolina Moore. We will be using this die. It is a 2-die set, but for today's project we won't need this one. So this die is the one that cuts the boxed corners and the darts. To embellish the bags, I am also going to be using a couple other dies. I've got my circles here for a moon, and then I have the Halloween medley as well as the cat and bat, just to make it a little more Halloween. Now for the pattern, you do need 4 fat quarters, 2 for the outside of the bag and 2 for the lining. 4 fat quarters is also just a yard of fabric, so today I will just be using some yardage here. And then I have some small scraps to cut out for my embellishments. And then you also need some webbing or strapping for the handles. So the first thing we want to do is prep our fabric. It does have you trim down your fat quarters to 18 inches by 20 inches, where the 20-inch length is going to be the top and bottom of the bag. So if your fabric has a directional print, you'll want to take that into consideration. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut out my 18 by 20 inch rectangles. All right, I've got my 4 fabrics cut out. So I have 2 for the outside and 2 for the lining. I'm going to make sure they are all right side up. Not sure if it shows up on camera, but there is a print on here. So we'll make sure those are all facing the same direction. And now we need to cut out the box corners in the bottom corners of all 4 pieces. And that's where our first die comes in. So on the box bag die, you'll see that there are the screen printed numbers, and that's so you can line up your fabric so that it has the proper depth for your box. For this pattern, we're going to be using the 3-inch lines. So basically you just take the bottom corner and you'll line it up on the 3-inch line and send that through the machine. So on both of the bottom corners, I'm going to go ahead and fold this and cut both bottom corners at the same time. Just make sure that they're really well aligned. Remember, you can cut up to 6 layers of fabric at once. For this die, I probably would not do the full 6 just because you want to make sure they stay aligned. So I'm just going to do 2 layers at a time, 1 piece at a time. And I'm using a smaller mat just to cover the area that I want to cut. I don't need to cover the dart because I'm not cutting that right now. So there's the square cut out. And there are the edges for our box. This die is really nice because if you've ever tried to cut boxed corners like with your rotary cutter, putting your ruler there and using your rotary cutter, it's really easy to overcut and get into your bag itself, which is not good. So let's do the other 3. Making sure to cut the bottom corner. Now that all the back pieces are cut, we need to work on our embellishments. We're going to add the embellishments and get them all appliqued on before we construct the bag so that we can sew through just the outside shell. So I'm going to start by attaching some fusible adhesive to the back side of all of these fabric scraps so that I could then cut them out all in one go. now we can cut out our embellishments. So on one side of the bag, I'm going to cut a yellow circle and the bat, so it looks like a bat in front of a full moon. And then on the other side, I'm going to cut out a couple friendly ghosts. There's our little bat. And I'm going to use the largest of the circles. So there's our moon. I used this mottled fabric, so it actually kind of looks like the moon. And then for the other side, I'm just going to cut out 2 of the ghosts. You guys can cut up to 4 layers of pre-fused cotton, so I can cut both of these at the same time. And again, I am using that smaller mat. I don't need to cover the areas that don't have fabric, so this way it'll just focus on the ghost. There we go. So on the 2 bag pieces that are going to be the outside shell, I am going to add my embellishments and applicate them down before we move on to the next step of the actual pattern. This will be my lining, so I'll just set that aside. I do want the design to be somewhat in the center. So what I will do is I will just fold this in half this way, and then fold again just the outside seam. Like that, because this part will essentially be the bottom of the bag on the underside. So I've got that folded into quarters, and then I'm just gonna iron just that tip. And what that will do is give me a nice crease line so I can see where the center of the bag is, and I can use that to judge where I'm gonna place everything. So for this side, we're gonna do the moon. And the bat. I'll have them overlapped a little bit. That looks fun. And because the bat is dark and so is the bag, I'm going to do my applique stitch in a really bright yellow just to bring in some more fun. So I'm going to fuse this down. And really, if you're in a hurry to get these done at the last minute, you can leave it just like this. That fusible adhesive is pretty strong, and this will totally get you through Halloween night just by fusing it on. So there's the first side. And when you fold to find the center, you can do it wrong sides together, right sides together. It does not matter. You'll just get that temporary crease for your center so you can place everything. And that'll go away when you iron it again to fuse. And there's the second side. Now, since my Juki only does a straight stitch, I'll be using my Eversewn Sparrow because it has a blanket stitch. I do always recommend before you go to do your finishing stitches to test it out. So I've just got a little scrap here I fused a scrap onto, and I just want to make sure that all of my settings are dialed in so it's giving me the stitch that I want. All right, so now we'll get started. So I'm just going to follow the edge of the pieces and go all the way around. All right, there's the first side. And I'm just going to do the ghosts with the same bright yellow. And there's the second side. I'm going to change out the thread and then we'll start assembling. The next step, on the lining fabric, you're going to make a mark 6 inches in from both sides along the top. Not sure if you can see that, but I just made 2 little marks. That's where the handles are going to go. And now we're going to box the corners. And what that means is in each of these notches that we cut out, we're going to put them right sides together and simply sew a 1/4 inch right there along that open edge. So once you sew that and open it up, it's going to give some dimension to your bag, or have a boxed bottom, basically. So I'll do this with the rest of them. All right, we've got all of our front pieces as well as our lining pieces boxed. So now we need to join the 2 outer pieces, so the pieces that we have put our designs on. We're going to place them right sides together, and we're going to sew down the side, across the bottom, and back up the other side. And when you get to the seams for the boxed corners, you can just flip them so that they nest really nicely. There's the outside of the bag. Now we'll repeat that for the lining. However, we need to leave about a 6-inch gap along the bottom, and that's so we could turn it right side out once we've attached the lining to the outer shell. I am just going to mark it on here in about the center, just to remind myself to leave that open. Then we'll sew down one side along part of the bottom, pick up again along the other part of the bottom, and then back up the other side. And there's our lining. Next, we'll take our strapping and cut it down to 16 inches each. So you can use just some webbing. This was some leftovers I had from something else. Or you can make your own straps out of fabric, just folding it into the center and folding it in on itself. But you'll need 2 straps that are 16 inches long. I need to turn the lining right side out first. So the lining is right side out. And then we'll take our straps and we're going to line it up with those marks that we made earlier. And I'm just going to line it up center of the strap to the center of that line. And you want the strap to stick out about 1/4 inch. Or it should look like that. Let's do the other one. If you have wider straps like this, you could also use 2 pins just to make sure it doesn't shift when you're sewing it together. So now that we have them pinned to our lining, with the outer shell still wrong side out, we're going to insert the lining into the shell and make sure that those handles are in between the 2 layers. If you like, you can pin this. You're going to align the side seams, put a couple pins in there. And again, you can flip the seams so that they nest really nicely. Now, what I'm going to do is repin these handles. So I'll just hold it so everything stays in place, but I'm going to repin them to keep the fabrics from shifting and make sure that they stay in place. So I'm pinning through both layers of fabric as well as the handle. I'll also make sure it stays on the inside where it's supposed to be. There we go. Now we're just going to stitch 1/4 inch all the way around the top edge. I am backstitching at each edge of the strap just to help reinforce it. And now we can turn it right side out through that hole that we left in the lining. So now your bag will look something like this. We need to close up this hole, so you can just tuck in the raw edges with that 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then top stitch about a 1/16 of an inch to an 1/8 of an inch from the edge. And now we can tuck the lining inside the bag. And now we just need to press along the top edge so we can do our top stitching. That's all nice and pressed. So now I'm just going to top stitch about an 1/8 of an inch from the edge all the way around the top edge. That will also help secure the handles. And if you like, you could do some back stitching at each edge of the handle as well, just to give it some extra reinforcement. All done. Fun little trick or treat bag for your child, or a fun shopping tote for yourself. I'll leave a link below with all of the supplies that I used today, all the different dies, as well as a link to the pattern you can download for free from the AccuQuilt website. Thanks for watching. See you next time.